Try to be heard. What's up? What's up? It's Irish USMC Vet, Poison Stinger over there. Bass is knocking stuff off. Wow. Good morning. Some days I get here on time, some days I don't.
Always keeping it interesting.
You got to keep them guessing. I got to keep them guessing.
Yeah.
Well, I had invited a friend today, but I don't know what happened. Closed. Well, maybe you can see it. I don't know.
No, not that I'm aware of.
You don't see Hagatha the War Witch with me today?
No.
Let's see if I can find her. It says we're live.
No.
Maybe not.
I got an email saying that you went live, so.
Okay, well.
And I'm seeing the video.
There's Hagatha the War Witch. She's wearing her PPE and her SOE cock shirt. SOE cock shirt. Get you some from SOE because I got cocks over at SOE. All right. Yeah. I had to bring her along today because she's the War Witch, and we're at war with the virus. But today we're talking about garden planting.
Nice.
Take a deep breath and plant some stuff. Right? That's right.
Yep. I did a little bit of weed pulling yesterday, so I'm ready. Now I just need to know what stuff I'm going to go get, what I'm planting.
Yeah, I have some stuff for like tough gardens, and if I would have known that you was going to work on that, I would have dug up all that information about.
Well, you called me out.
Tough herb gardens.
You know,
I'll find it. We got some time.
Yeah.
Well, some of these books and stuff, information is not concern you because you're not in Midwinter anymore.
Nope. We're in, I guess, late spring, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm looking at
the
Midwinter.
Last freeze was in what, January? So.
Yeah, that's you're lucky man. You should be planting
2 weeks.
now.
That's all we get.
2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, as I told you, I'm gonna probably end up paying a little extra because I want to get the sapling, the ones that are already starting to grow a little, instead of actually planting the seeds, just so that it has a jump start. Because apparently aphids here in Arizona, which are a big nuisance and kill most of my crops that I ever try to plant, apparently they show up mostly when summer starts. And the whole idea is to get your plant healthy enough and big enough so that it can actually survive all the aphids. And maybe that's what didn't happen. I thought my plants were pretty big at the time, but apparently not big enough. Not to mention I didn't have any beneficial flowers or other plants. So we'll try to fix that this year.
Sacrificial.
Yeah.
So today, I guess we'll do seasonal priorities, like stuff that you should be doing. But obviously, this is not going to work for you because you're already in spring. So, along with my,
plenty of other people watch.
I don't know. But anyways, so like, start keeping a journal. Do you keep a journal?
No, but I will.
You need to keep a journal.
I never even thought about that, to be honest. So
keep a journal. Well, it's good so that way you can read your notes. Because if you're going to plant in the same place next year, or you plan on growing, and you don't want to plant the same plants in the same area again. So, because crop rotation is important too to keep down the bug population.
Even in such a small little area as I have.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to plant it in the same square foot diameter. You know what I'm saying? Because you could do square foot gardening, but you still have to rotate it around. And the garden planter that we're going to use, that I'm going to do a video on tonight, will be more in depth than one we started playing around with yesterday.
All right, cool.
So I'm going to do a full length walkthrough on that tonight and post it up sometime whenever I get a chance this afternoon or this evening.
Nice.
But anyways, with with your garden, you want to keep notes. So keep you a garden book, and it doesn't have to be super extensive, but at least you could write down when you started something, where you put it at in this certain section of the garden, and it's kind of like a workout journal. But you go in there and log. Well, I noticed aphids today. The plant's been growing 6 weeks, or so it kind of gives you an idea of where you're at with.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to do it for each plant, but if you have a problem with the plant, then you can note that. So just write your journal out, and if you don't have too many, you can just make 1 page for each row of plants, or 1 page for each plant. Just depends on how detailed oriented you want to be. So, but the good part about that is so you can read and assess what happened last year. So if like your bush pickles, if they do really well, then kind of like, oh yeah, man, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, I don't remember what they did last year, So, but if you ever wrote down, you could always flip to that page and go say, hey, these or the straight 8s did good, but the pickle bush didn't do good.
Your audio cut out.
No, still there? Can you hear me now? No, crapola.
It's totally dead.
How about now?
No. Let me. I'm gonna turn on the sound on the YouTube, so hopefully this doesn't echo. But go ahead and say something.
Hello. The pickle bush didn't do good. Still there? Can you hear me now? No.
Okay, so YouTube can hear you. That means it's probably on my side. So hold on, and I will reset.
Alrighty. So keeping the journal, just quickly, because you want to keep the past growing season, so you can assess and see how previous year's varieties done, as well as rotation, and if you performed any cover crops. So if you have any cover crops posted, then hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, sorry about that.
All right. We'll move the middle Mr. Stinger out of the picture. Goodbye, Mr. Middle Stinger. So yeah, if you keep up with your crop rotation, you'll want to know where you planted stuff, and as well as your cover crops, if you performed any cover crops. Now you would benefit from a cover crop, Russ, because the weeds grow, right?
Yeah.
So if you planted clover, for example, I don't know if that'll grow there because I'm not. But if you can plant clover and it'll grow in your garden bed, it'll also put green manure and nitrogen back into the soil. And then next year, it also snuffs out the weeds because it's a fast-growing, low-lying plant. But it'll put nitrogen back in the soil, and then you could till it under, fork it over, whatever, and then it puts green manure back in there. So you're putting nutrients in without having to put any outside nutrients in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
I think we actually do have clover on the back end of our property where it's not so sunny. I'd have to show you a couple leaves or something in order to confirm it because I'm not a botanist, but
right,
it looks like clover to me.
And you can buy it from seedneeds.com, like those packets I was showing you the other day. So you can buy it from there and try it out and see if it works for you. I'm sure. Obviously, when you buy the seeds, well, not obviously, but when you buy the seeds, make sure that they're growing in your area because somebody is in spring and I'm still in pretty much midwinter.
Right.
I mean, it snows, So, but you could
I've
also
been to Indiana in the winter. It's no fun.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, no, it sucks. One day it's 70 and the next day it's 17. So
Mm-hmm.
you can use your notes to plan next year's crops and the crop rotation, and then after you know what you're going to do to see what seeds done good or did bad, you can go ahead and order your seeds. Now you have to speed that forward for you because, like I said, you have a great season out there.
In fact, some years we don't even get a freeze. So that's another thing I wanted to bring up, and this is more of an Arizona thing, but what happens if my plants don't die during the winter time because they never froze, and I can just keep them where they're at for the next season?
Yeah, And a lot of them will if they're heirloom or if they're heirloom, they should produce all year round. They may stunt the growth or slow it down during the cool weather, but if they're properly protected around the base and it doesn't get too cold, then yeah, those essentially be a permaculture plant. They're basically,
you don't have to worry about the whole rotation at that point.
Well, I'm speaking from my area, so that's something I have to do more research on because I really don't know if it's like a blueberry, you don't have to rotate, right? A blueberry or a fruit or nut, you don't have to rotate. Just the annual plants is what we have to rotate because of insects and stuff like that, and mold spores and stuff like that, like to set up in the ground. So, I mean, your moisture content's a lot different than ours as well. So, sounds like most plants are perennials where you live because of the heat and good condition.
Lack of water, yeah.
Crappy soils, but wonderful growing season.
Yeah. You want to grow a cactus, we got plenty of good soil for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could grow comfrey. Comfrey, like that, goes down 60 feet and draws the water and everything up. So you might look into that, and that's a chop and drop mulch. You literally just cut it down, and it turns from all the stuff that brought up, all the nutrients and minerals that brought up from 60 feet below, and put it right on the surface and let it helps break it down and drop it right back down into your soil. So it's amendment. Along with your journal, you can go ahead and see what kind of prices you paid last year and see what kind of soil amendment you used and tell whether or not, this soil worked, horse manure worked, chick manure, turkey manure, whatever worked. And if you didn't apply it last fall and you forgot, then you'll know because it's in your journal. And you can apply it in the spring. So, but then you have to adjust whether or not it's hot manure, and by hot I mean not. I had a brain
fresh.
Yeah, it's well broke down manure.
Yeah.
So, and then you could assess how well the field, like if you have a field or if you have different garden beds, you assess how the previous year's crops did in that field, and go over the notes for the past growing season. So point out where low spots are you may need to fill or add some soil to, or maybe add drainage if you have a large scale production. You could also plan for the crop rotation, which I said, but that's something you're going to do in the midwinter as well. And then the other one, like I said, purchase your soil amendments. Wow, today's a bad day.
It's Friday, dude.
It's usually Monday. So, and if you have pasture, or if you do a crop rotation, and I'm not talking like pastures in 5-10 acres. I'm talking like if you do a 1/4 acre lot, you want to have some of that as pasture, because there's several books, and I don't have one with me, but and information on the internet for a 1/4 acre farm, and you can produce most of what you need on a 1/4 acre farm. But if you have a pasture and your crop rotation, or even in mine, my gardens, I have 3 gardens, and they're set up side by side, and then they're separated by fence, and I have the chicken coop at the end so that I can allow the chickens to go in 1, 2, or 3. And by doing so, if let's say I used garden bed 1, garden bed 2 last year, and I let the chickens be in garden bed 3, I can rotate that. And only allow the chickens into 3 this year and keep 2 and 1 for gardening, which really works well if you have a small space. But it was just a test garden concept that I looked up and found. And actually the middle one's going to be turned into a greenhouse, and the chickens are still going to be allowed to go into the middle one so that they basically poop and I can scoop and put it in my composter that's inside the greenhouse. But that's a really good setup if you want some chickens and you want to be able to rotate them and still have chickens and, several different garden beds and several different layers of security. Hold on.
Sure.
Oh, okay. The dogs are going crazy. You have to check these days. They're right. Agatha says yes. You guys can't see her today. I don't know why, but anyways, so that's a really good concept. I can do a video on that one day and see what everybody thinks. But if you have a small space, that's a perfect starting point. If you want to do 3. Am I froze up again? I don't know.
No, you're fine.
You're moving around over there in some weird way, so I was like,
I'm sorry. I'm trying to plug in my iPad so I don't have a lack of power.
Sorry. All right. And then you can work on clearing fence lines, brush, and branches. If there's little to no snow, and obviously you don't have snow, but in my area, that's, right now is the time to be doing that. And then you take those branches and put them in a pile, and not to burn, but start throwing your compost on top of them. And you can actually make a hugiculture bed in place where you're cutting the branches down, and then turn that into a flower garden. Or it's essentially what you're doing with your is it the Garden of Eden? Is that what you have in your side yard?
Yeah,
right now?
kind of. It's I got the wood chips. I layered it. I
So
haven't tended it recently. I probably need to add some more wood chips to it because it looks like the wood chips have gone down quite a bit, which is good. They're breaking down into the soil, but yeah, I need to work on it a little bit more today.
Yeah, if you pile the pile up at 1 foot, it's guaranteed to be 6 inches after they degrade down. So yeah, you're not in too big of a problem there. But a hugiculture bed is the same concept. You put the wood, and except you could use whole trees and build like your layer mulch on top of the whole trees or root, stuff that you've cut down. And it's just the same concept as the mulch, big, small, and then you put dirt over top of it. And you can add all your layer mulch to the same thing. But then as that breaks down, it produces a nitrogen-rich environment for you to grow in. The only caveat with that is you want to plant some cover crop on it immediately, or you'll end up with a weed bed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
What I have now.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
See? So that's a lot of people's mistakes. They're like, oh, well, I built this fancy garden bed, and then they're like, crap, I don't want to weed this crap. Well, it's because nobody tells you to put the cover crop on it. Yeah. I mean, you can go look, Johnny Seeds. That's a website, johnnyseeds.com, I think. They sell green manure. And by green manure, I'm not talking about you get a bag of crap. You get a bag of seeds that you plant as a cover crop and then turn that over into your bed whenever you go to plant the next season. Or vice versa. Like if you're not going to use that field this year, you can just let it grow. And it can be forage for your animals too. So also with the planting, if you have an orchard, now's the time to select and order your trees. Probably not now for most people, but you set traps, your pest control stuff. Some people set traps out. I don't use them because I think they draw more stuff in, but you can order your milky spore or your beneficial bacteria now. If you heat with wood, or if you know someone that does heat with hardwoods, you could go ahead and start sprinkling the ashes around the drip lines of the trees, whether it be a fruit tree, a nut tree, or any tree in your yard. You can sprinkle it around and go ahead and start doing that now. What I do is because I have a food forest, I'll take the buckets of wood ash and spread it in a straight line. And then along that straight line, the trees will be staggered in between there, and I will add basically another layer mulch, and then plant beneficial flowers in between each tree. So each tree is an 8 foot by 8 foot square, and inside that square is a permaculture garden. And does that make sense? Permaculture garden, but it's actually a food forest is what it's turning into.
Right. Yeah.
So every 8 foot, there's an 8 foot square here, and there's a tree in the middle. and then there's other plants and beneficial plants inside that, right? And then you flip it over, and over here, I'll go this way because you can see me, is an empty spot. Well, in that empty spot, I also, like next year, like if I planted this tree this year, next year, I will have already planted a bed here in between that tree and the next tree. And this bed will be empty, but there'll be a tree in this box, and this box, and this one will be empty. Well, in this box, I'll plant beneficial flowers, wildflowers, stuff for the deer to eat, maybe. Stuff just depends. If you want a deer-resistant garden, buy the deer-resistant plants. But if you plant the flowers in between each consecutive each tree, so every other spot, then you can go back the year after that. So you plant this year one tree in this box, wildflowers, next box tree. Well, the year after these been in the ground for 1 year, you plant this one. And you can plant a micro or a dwarf tree in that, or something that grows in an understory, like elderberry.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what you're doing is every year you're adding more and more squares, 8-foot squares, and then it'll turn into a food forest, which is a permaculture garden because everything in there is a permanent fixture.
Right.
It's just a different
shaded, right? I mean, so it's like anything that's partial sun. Is that kind of the idea on that?
Yeah, raspberries, a lot of brambles will grow understory. Strawberries will. Certain strawberries. You could actually use those as ground cover or St. John's wort. I use a lot of St. John's wort as cover because the rabbits tend to eat the strawberry plants, and so do the deer. Let's see. I put gooseberry. Gooseberry is like a thorny grape plant. I put a lot of those out. I put marigolds, and then the wildflower blend, and the comfrey goes in one corner, and then echinacea as well to bring in beneficial insects. I need a whiteboard.
Yeah, I think you do actually.
Yeah, it's might be complicated. Not that anybody's gonna watch and learn. Everybody's too busy worried about the La Cerveza Más Fina bug.
Yeah, well, you keep them up here and people will check it out, especially if we stay on topic, and I'll try to do that because I am guilty of getting off topic.
The last 30 minutes we can go off the chains. The first hour or whatever, we're just
this is very interesting to me. I know my area is a little different, but dude, it's so much knowledge. It's actually a little overwhelming, but at the same time, everybody's got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? So
yeah, if you just pick up a little bit and then build off of it, like I said, it's really different. And I mean, I understand the difference between the microclimates and all that stuff, but to think that you're already in a spring, and I have, I'm basically in winter. I mean, because it snowed 2 days in a row.
All right. I had to turn on the air conditioner the other day for the first time this year.
Check your 6.
Oh, I know my 6.
Okay.
The wife.
I can't.
You can't watch my 6 from Indiana.
I can't do anything about it, I can tell you. Morning, Crazy Scotsman. What's going on, brother? So moving on, it's time to also start observing your beehives if you have them. That's a whole different ball game. I'm just getting into that. So we done it when I was a child, but now I don't mess with them. I just buy my honey. Yeah. But the bees are real close.
I used to. Back in the 80s, I had a beehive. Me and my dad did, and we worked on it for a little while, but he lost interest, and then they swarmed. But nowadays, I don't even know if that would be possible down where I'm at because it's all killer bees now.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the honey bee's gone. I mean, yeah, I guess we still get local honey, right? So I don't know if I guess killer bees make honey. I'm not a
maybe
bug dude.
Maybe it's killer honey.
Maybe extra spicy.
Extra spicy. But on sunny days, over 45 or 7 degrees Celsius, you want to look to see if the bees are emerging and doing cleansing flights, but don't open the hives yet. You can order new hive supplies and bees because spring is coming, right? So you want to get that ready. And you can paint and assemble new hives when they arrive so that they'll go ahead and be dry and ready to put out. The barn, my favorite part. The barn. I hate the barn because the barn turns into let's stash all the crap in the wintertime and stuff that the wife wants to clean out of the house. But it's my fault because, I'm the man. So check your hay supply if you have hay, which doesn't apply to most people. But if you're short, you need to start looking to buy because you're not going to get hay in the beginning of the spring in most places because people aren't cutting it. They're not going to cut hay. They're not going to cut straw because they usually cut it for the wintertime. And if you do find it, it's going to be like $6 to $10 a bale, which is not good at all. And it's also time to get your goats and sheep ultrasounds to see if they're carrying any young. So if you have a goat or a sheep, you can get them checked at by the veterinarian. We still have a veterinarian that comes out and visits farms. So control rodents. That's a 24-hour, 365-day job, right? But as a matter of fact, in the barn this morning, there was my lovely barn kitties left me five dead mice that they had captured throughout the night. And so I feed them every morning, but they still just tear the mice up. So I had 5 mice this morning. And one was like somebody running over the steamroller, the cat had played with it enough and then rolled around it to make it flat. So, yeah.
Wow.
You also want to check on your livestock. Monitor water, salt, and mineral intakes daily because it's becoming spring and everybody's getting ready to start growing again. And they grew a little bit in the wintertime, but research where you can buy your pigs if you got wiener pigs and wiener pigs. I'm not talking about like hot dogs.
Is that where they make the little wiener schnitz or the little sausages?
I'm talking about your wiener pigs that are just being weaned. So you can go ahead and get your pigs, right? Order chicks now. And not a mail order bride, but go ahead and order them, whatever breed you use, and check local and state laws because people are crappy about that. You also want to check and feed and water your hens daily. That's just something that you got to throw out there, but you should be doing anyways. If their water's froze up, they're not drinking. And if you're not drinking and they're not drinking, then you're not getting any eggs because egg production falls off at loss of daylight. So you provide supplemental light. Small solar panel will provide enough power to a Power Wheels battery to provide them a light for a couple hours in the evening so that they get 8 hours of sunlight or, light. And I let my hens out every day, so it doesn't matter. But it says, now's the time to start letting the hens out. So, equipment shed. Now, I've been doing this too. I have a 5-gallon bucket of linseed oil that I'm doing all the tool handles.
Yep. Now that I do have some experience with, boy. I've been growing up around linseed oil my whole life, so that's my preference of waterproofing anything that's made out of wood for sure.
Yeah. So I'm doing the boiled linseed oil. Lubricate any tools that you're going to use that require lubrication. You can start working on your lawnmower. Change oil in that if it requires oil change. Chainsaw, stuff that you have around the farm. A seeder. I don't know. I have a little push seeder, and a lot of times that bearing in there will get gummed up from using it during the beginning of the season, and I don't clean it until now. So I'll have to go get that out and make sure that it's cleaned out and lubricated. But I use a food-grade silicone on that, so there's no crap in there. But it gets clogged up every year. So I try not to use the tractor unless necessary, completely necessary. And it's my grandfather's, and I don't want to tear it up. Well, my grandfather passed away, but my grandmother owns it. But woodlot management. Now's the time. Start harvesting timber. You could do forest improvement, pruning, thinning, debris cleanup, and add it to your pile, your agriculture pile. We do it when it's cold, frozen, raining, snowing, but most people, don't want to do it then. But you can burn debris while, according to state and local laws, we burn our stuff here. A lot of stuff if you have too much or if the pile's too big or you don't have a place for it. So That also puts nutrients back in the soil. Check over if you have sugar maples, if you do sugaring, now's the time to check your equipment and plan which trees you're going to tap this year. So that's a really interesting thing. I've done it a couple times. My buddy does it usually. I don't. He started out as an apprentice of mine and turned into good friends. And so that's what he does now. He basically just taps all the sugar, or the maple trees, and makes all the maple syrup and stuff. So that was kind of a venture we went on together, and he just kind of took off with it and found his way, and that's what he does. So
that's cool.
Wildlife habitat. You want to check your native plants and animals that are occupied on your property. You can build bird houses, bat houses, and wild bee houses right now because, well, here anyways. I'm talking about for my eastern brother, the western brothers over there. They already got nice days and air conditioning on.
Yeah, getting hot, dude.
And then you want to go ahead and order your native plant seeds, food trees, and shrubs for your wildlife. See, I personally do this because, I showed it to you the other day, maybe it was yesterday or the other day when I showed you the seed packets for the wildlife. So essentially what you're doing is that's another sacrificial plant or sacrificial item, right? So I plant elderberry for myself, and then I plant elderberry for the turkeys and the birds and all that stuff. One, because the birds they come in and they not only eat that, but they also eat the bugs and the larvae, and they add a lot of stuff. They also add bird poop to your sidewalk and your cars. But the beneficial point is that they're coming in and they're doing more than you see or So scaring them away. Yes, if you have a car lot, you probably don't want them shitting everywhere. But if you don't, you probably
We have a lot of pigeons where I'm at. So.
And those aren't really beneficial, right? I mean, unless you want to eat them or send a letter. But
not really. Yeah, no.
But like the finches that we talked about yesterday, those are beneficial birds that you need to figure out how to get to your house. Right. And so that's just one way. And if you got them in your yard and somebody else next door doesn't have them because they didn't tie that yellow ribbon on their thing, then their stuff's getting eaten by aphids and yours is not. And they're like, oh, you're having a nice garden this year.
Let's hope that's the case, because I tell you, you do it a few years in a row and don't get nothing out of it, it starts to get disheartening for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? You got to stick with it. And as you said, the journal, I think, would definitely help so that you know what not to do, or at least have a better idea of it.
Yeah, you can even go as much detail as you wish or as little detail. But like if you first start to notice, say like fertilizer you're using, right? So yesterday we discovered that the fertilizer is high in nitrogen. So the higher the nitrogen content in soil, the more aphids come to feed off that. As where if you put a slow release nitrogen, they're less apt to come to that because it's slower releasing than the instant release nitrogen. So
right.
If you wrote down, I use this fertilizer, and then you can go and look during the cold months, or in your case, the cold month.
Cold 2 weeks.
The cold 2 weeks, and say, hey, well, let me do a little research on this. So the aphids came on, and I use this fertilizer. What is there an alternative? So you can work out stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's on a small scale, even on a large scale. If you do it this way, it may be more a daunting task, but not really. I mean, if you're not doing anything but sitting around twiddling your thumbs playing poker on the computer, I mean, you should have time to do this. So now that it's getting that time of year, you want to go ahead and check your seed catalogs and all that stuff. You should have already ordered them. I usually try to order them September or October. And then they'll send you emails or catalogs. A lot of places still send you catalogs. But like I said, they'll give you $100 off a $200 order. And as we seen yesterday, $44 for a tree. You buy two and a couple seed packets, and you're already at $200.
Yeah.
and they're giving you essentially $100 worth of free product. So it's worth it to look into it. Choose varieties suited to your climate and length of growing season. So this differs between me and you because we made that discovery yesterday too.
Yeah.
So you can grow field pickle or bush pickles now, and I can't grow anything other than cold weather crops that have to be shielded in a cold house or a hoop house or something like that.
Right.
Look for persistent disease resistant strands of vegetables. So do your research on what diseases that you have in your area, what's been reported. You can do that through the USDA farm website, and a lot of stuff gets detailed information there too. Note how the seed produced and opinions about this. So this is where I said earlier, well, this seed, I like this seed because it done this, or I noticed this one bloomed but didn't produce anything. So then it gives you a place to start investigating whether or not that's a viable option for you this year or next year. Just because the seed store sells it doesn't mean it's going to grow there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like purple passion fruit, in your climate it'll probably grow and be successful, but here I can't get the fruit to grow. No matter how early I start it, it never seems to come to fruition. The flower doesn't turn into a fruit. So, and then you also want to match your perennials with your hardiness zone, or provide a microclimate. And that's the microclimates I was talking about yesterday. How you said you have shade, right? So in the shade, that'll be a microclimate. And then if you have full sun all the time, then it's not. Like we have rolling hills, and then the valleys, it's a different microclimate than it is up on top of the hill, because the cool air will come in the valley in the evening, and it'll still be hot up on top of the hill, but in the valley it'll be cooler. So you have to plan for those temperature sways too. So because it's going to get cooler there during the summertime, it's going to get cooler there in the wintertime too, and stay cooler longer, and also probably have a higher moisture content. Let's see. And then there's just some more, like try planting against a wind protected south facing wall. Is yours south facing? Where you get
No, it's on the west side of the building. So that's west facing, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, so your wall would be west facing. Now where does the sun fall? Are you considered northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere of the sun?
Oh, I don't know, dude. Hold on.
So your I'm not the hemisphere. Your house. So like the west wall is where you have your garden. Where is the north and south from that west wall?
South is my front door and the lawn, and the north is a parking lot where there's asphalt everywhere.
Okay, so you could plant if the sun. I don't know. I'd have to see it now. I'm dumbfounded. So what I do is like if I know the sun's going to be here, but I want to plant shade plants here, I'll plant the taller plants in the front, and then it'll shade these from the afternoon sun. Okay. So I'll plant corn up here, let's say, and then the beans or something down here, or cabbage or something needs the sun break in the afternoon. So as the sun comes across, I'll have it planted so that the tall stuff's in the front and the smaller stuff that needs shade is in the back. It then requires much sunlight. Make sense?
Yeah. I mean, using plants to shade other plants definitely makes sense.
Like the Three Sisters, I think we've talked about that too. But that's just a companion planting thing too.
Right.
And if you planted last year, you can use your notes to plan for details for next year's crop rotation, cover crop plantings, and assess what year's varieties work for you, your rotation that you're going to use, and any cover crops that you perform to, keep all the other crappy weeds from growing instead of spraying it down with Monsanto. You can also check the quality and productivity, resistance to weed competition, disease, and also keep up with the insect pests that you had the year before. The ease of harvesting. So if you have hard way to get into a field, you might want to write that down and say, hey, we need to add some gravel or a culvert pipe to get in here or something, so you don't have to worry about that. And contributions from the root and above ground residue for your soil protection and health. That's just some of the pre-season chores that they go through that we keep track of. Are you interested in getting into deciphering seed labels?
Well, the only thing I've ever had an issue with the seed levels is trying to figure out what zone I was in at the time, because some of them are really close to, they don't show where Phoenix is or whatever, So you got to kind of guesstimate. But other than that, I mean, lay it on me, because apparently I'm uneducated on this one. I didn't know you had to decode it.
Well, there's different, everybody knows of GMO because of what's going on. People know a lot of people know what hybrid are. Heirloom, I mean, that's an open pollinated plant from domestic breed, or sometimes from overseas, whatever, that's been domesticated here. But open pollinated are seeds that are plants that have been bred naturally in a field. The strains have been stabilized over the years, and they breed true. And so the strains will produce pretty much like their parent. So that's what I was talking about with like an heirloom seed. They've been open pollinated, so they are more disease resistant in most cases, because if not, they died off. It's kind of like the strongest survive.
Right.
So these plants, like open pollinated, are kind of like an heirloom seed in the fact that they've been bred out in the open, so all of the harsh weather, bugs and everything and they've grown a resistance to it, just like the plants that are resistant to Monsanto Roundup, right? So that's the way open pollinated works. Heirloom is also an open pollinated plant, but it's mainly from a domestic livestock or domestic stock breed. They were bred for specific traits, and for more than 50 years. So the heirloom is, say your grandfather started it 50 years ago, and they bred it for a tall, spindly plant versus a small, wiry plant. So, and especially for hardiness and flavor, and is often specifically adapted for a particular region. So purple crim or black crim, is it black crim or purple crim? I forgot right now. But there's some plants that were bred for a specific region due to microclimate issues, like we talked about. And so that's what an heirloom is. And the hybrid, that's a resulting cross of two varieties of a single species plant. Sometimes two species of plant, mainly one. And they do it in the field, and the seed from a hybrid plant does not breed true and may be sterile. So if you get a hybrid plant, so you put the best of two plants together, say like strawberry plants, for example, they have a new plant that came out, but they bred it with a June-bearing plant and an ever-bearing plant with a large quality fruit, right? So they breed them together, and then not a strawberry plant because that's perennial, but tomato. We use tomato, but they breed their best breeds. Like they put two breeds together, the best of both worlds. So then that plant will grow for 1 year, the best that it could possibly grow, and grow out of those 2 plants that they basically put into one. But the seeds are no longer viable. So if you cut that tomato open and try to save the seeds, it doesn't work. It may grow something, or it may not grow anything at all. But it's not going to be what it produced the first year. GMO, I mean, go look that crap up. You don't want that. I have farmers tell me all the time, I can't farm if I used heirloom seeds. I mean, you're putting the same amount of work in for a GMO as you are, an heirloom product. Plus,
do they mark the seeds that are GMO'd?
Most of them say, if you drive around the countryside, you'll see those signs that say 5177 corn or Cyberdyne genetics, like shit like that. And that's what they mark the field with to show what kind of corn brand is there. So yeah, it's any like Bayer corn. Bayer makes aspirin. I don't want no Bayer corn.
I doubt. I mean, with all the stuff about GMOs now, I would doubt that they're advertising it like they might have used to.
Oh, they still
like
put
now.
it
It's a bad thing if you're GMO, isn't it? I'm just, as far as going to the store and buying some seeds to plant in my, little garden here where I'm living. Do I need to worry about GMOs and stuff like that in those seed packets?
Most corn and most soybean, unless it says organic, is GMO.
Wow. Yeah, it's not like they're going to put that on the package, because if they did, I don't think many people would buy that for their personal garden.
Most packages are required to say non-GMO on seed packages. I don't know if it has to say GMO, but that's something we can investigate. But
right.
Most of them have to say non-GMO. Like if you go look at seeds, they say non-GMO, and that's definitely the ones you want, because they're also like a hybrid, but in the aspect that they will not produce again. So if you get stuck in the routine of having to buy from a GMO company, if you can't replant those seeds, like if you kept an ear of corn, you couldn't replant those seeds. They're genetically sterile. So cell fusion, or CMS, which is cytoplastic male sterility, that's a particular method of genetically altering seeds. It's creating a type of GMO that has a modified trait so as not to pass on the seed's progeny, and therefore allow National Organic Program certified organic seed production. That make any sense?
Not a lot to me.
Okay, so basically they're creating a type of genetically modified organism, but it's sterile. So like hemp production, for example, they'll do this with hemp so that it's sterile, and there's no chance of becoming self-fertile.
Right.
Because if it became self-fertile, then you'd have marijuana or the devil's lettuce. Treated seeds. So seed coating that's coated with a fungicide or pesticide to keep rot away from the plant. When the soil moisture temperature would inhibit the rapid sprouting, and it's prohibited in like organic garden production. Some places like Johnny Seed, you'll see these seeds that are colored and they're fatter than the normal seed would be, like they're ready to plant seeds. That's not the same product. That's a product coated, I think, with vermiculite, which is good. It's like a hard seed coating. Have you seen these? Like they're the more expensive seed packets, but they're easy. They're called Easy Seed, I think. Anyways, they have like a coating, like a clay bead, but they have vermiculite and stuff in them, so they're easier to handle. So like if you open a bag of seeds, cucumber seeds or something, or not cucumber, let's see something small. Celery seeds. You know how celery seeds have you ever seen celery seeds? It's like pepper almost, so small. Yeah. Well, they'll actually coat 1 to 2 seeds in this material and put it in there. But the treated seeds that we talked about, that a fungicide or a pesticide is encased. Now, that's not something you'll see as a gardener, But as a farmer, you can get stuff like that where the seeds are rolled in this stuff. So it goes in the ground with a pesticide on it. So the plant bug, like the Japanese beetle, don't eat it and stuff in the ground. So if you have an infestation, but it's not organically certified. So
right.
And then
It sounds good in theory, right? In theory, it sounds great.
And if you could
Expecting
put a
your seed to
natural,
grow.
if you could put a natural coating on it, that would do the same thing. Say, like ideally, you could put diatomaceous earth. If you could make a coating that had diatomaceous earth and then wrap it in diatomaceous earth, that's going to destroy anything that comes near it, right? It's not going to harm the seed itself, but they put a strong fertilizer in it and basically roll it around and make a seed ball out of it. CRISPR. Now, this is the new one to me because I don't. That's a DNA technology that breaks down the DNA of humans, but I guess it works for everything. It says clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. A type of GMO. It's cheap, effective, and mostly precise method of editing DNA in the laboratory, and therefore it's a type of genetic modification. The gene modification is permanent and passed on to future generations. CRISPR seed is expected to be commercially available in the near future if it isn't already. So I don't know a whole lot about that, but if by genetically modified it produces the best quality and nutrients, then that might be a okay thing, because you could change your DNA now. You can have a designer baby now, and you can have all the traits and qualities that you want without any of the defects. But if it's sterile, and according to the article, it says that, let's see, and it's passed on to all future generations. So that is a genetically modified seed that's passed on to all future generations. So it's not genetically modified to only produce for one season.
Yeah.
So that might be something to be looked into further. Because that doesn't sound too bad.
That could get out of hand.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound too bad, though, because if you can get all the characteristic traits that you want and it's passed on to further generations, if you plant a strawberry and you grow, because they'll send off runners, right? So a strawberry plant, when you plant it, it'll send out runners. And once those runners form leaves and go into the ground, you could cut the runner off, pull the plant up, and put it somewhere else. And then you'll have another whole plant set, right? So you're supposed to do this anyways if you do strawberries, because if not, it'll just keep growing and growing and growing and growing and make a cover crop. But if you can plant something and it'll grow again next year, that's not really a bad idea, with all the best qualities, so that you get a perfect size tomato with the perfect color. But it may be genetically modified, but not to the point to where you can't cut it open, take the seeds out, and put it back in the ground and regrow it. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't
further.
feel comfortable eating food that has been grown in a lab.
Yeah, somebody played
especially
God
with all the other shit that they're responsible for. Coronavirus.
Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely interesting. If you can make a disease-resistant pepper plant, I mean, that'd be cool. If it didn't have to have any chemicals put on it and stuff, that'd be cool. I mean, and essentially that's what they do with the hybridization, right? But then the hybridization doesn't, it won't produce the same thing the year after. That's the only problem with that. I don't know. It's definitely interesting. If anybody has any more information on it and you watch this video, put it down in the comment section so we can check it out.
For sure.
What's the difference between a garden and a field?
A field is like, what's the difference between a garden? One you plant vegetables and other things in, and the other one is just like hay grass or clover or what?
There's no real hard or fast separation between the two. Think of a garden as like supporting a variety of crops for consumption in a relatively small area. And a field you can grow a single crop or you can grow a multitude of crops there. But they can be combined with green manure and cover crops, large area and small area. So traditionally, we think that Gardens are just produce vegetables, herbs, and fruits, and fields are what produce grains and forages. But in the United States, that's not how it is. Here we do full-scale gardening, growing, um, and we can grow plenty of grain, even in patches of our garden. And the fields, we would put large enough to make mechanized implements essential for production. While a small garden, you're going to use hand tools and a tiller, right? Mm-hmm. So essentially, there's no real big difference if you have a 5-acre field and you're using hand tools. It's just considered a garden, right? But if you use a mechanized vehicle, they consider it a field. So makes no sense.
No, not really.
So they make a portable ultrasound unit that you could require some training to use. But like I was saying earlier about checking to see if you have babies, you can use the portable ultrasound unit to see what stage of pregnancy and the number of lambs you're going to have. Rats, mice, and pigeons. That's your favorite, right? Pigeons?
No, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but we have plenty of them.
So the article says pigeons are easier to shoot than poison.
Not in the city, they're not.
So it's hard to find a good spot and open to leave poison for animals because you don't want to poison anything else like cats or dogs. But shoot pigeons at night when they're roosted in the rafters of the barn and outbuildings. Use an air rifle or a lightly loaded bird shot so that you don't damage the roof. I wouldn't suggest shooting pigeons unless you're using a BB gun in the roof. Anyways, I can just see the disaster of a shotgun going off in a.
I do have a nice little shoddy right now.
Yeah.
And I live in the hood, so if I do it at night, people probably won't even care.
Nah, you just go into the what's those things called? Not a gazebo, but a shelter house. That'd be some funny shit. Yeah, I'd film that one. I want to see that. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Shooting the pests, shooting the pigeons.
Be the last thing I do before I go to prison, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you? Well, you don't have to, but do like a soil test. They have like little soil test kits.
I've always seen it and I've thought about it, but I don't know the first thing about it. Yeah, so explain that a little bit, because maybe that's what I should do. I mean, if I need to be careful with the nitrogen in my soil, then yeah, I need to get a soil test, and we need to figure out how to make it less rich, I guess.
Well, the soil, the nitrogen part is not for the soil problem; it's for your aphid problem. Yeah. So, I mean, you could put nitrogen in the soil. I mean, you could burn plants with it, but so your soil type, the components of soil, is rock particles, which are 3 basic sizes from like 0.05 to 2 millimeter in diameter. Silt is 0.02 to 0.05 millimeter, and clay is less than 0.02 millimeters, 0.002. The proportions of each determine soil type. The best all-around soil for producing human livestock food, or for human and livestock food, is loam. Typically a mix of 30 to 50% sand, 20 to 50% silt, and 10 to 15% of clay. The soils of the entire United States have been mapped and classified, and you can use this handy-dandy little website that the Natural Conservation Resource Service website resources to find out what type of soil that your land has in the classification. Or you can visit your county extension agriculture office and get a map of the soils and classifications for your land. Good to go. You're hiding out over there eating on me, huh?
Just a little.
Well, you're gonna have to take over for a second because I have to go use the men's.
Okay. So, well, he's going to the John. This can be a little overwhelming. I know sometimes it overwhelms me. I think the main thing is if you don't know everything, don't be afraid to ask. Leave a comment below. He'll definitely get back to you and answer anything that you might have a question on. But try not to be overwhelmed. That's what I'm trying to be. I gather as much information as I can, but luckily some of the information he's talking about when it comes to like industrial size farms and things like that, I don't really have to worry about that too much. But um, if you're starting off like me and have no experience, start small and ask a lot of questions. That wasn't too long.
I'm quick.
Did you wash your hands?
Yes. Well, my wife says I'm quick. I don't know.
Self burn.
Yeah. There's all kinds of good funny jokes. Well, we're at an hour, so nobody's watching. And so now we can talk about anything. Talk about anything.
All right. So that concludes the garden planning.
The garden talk. Now we can talk about all kinds of stuff.
I mean, we can still talk about garden stuff, but I wanted to touch on the soil testing.
Okay.
Isn't that just like a pH strip that you see the acidity in your soil, or is there a kit that I can buy for a small soil sample? I mean, my soil is going to be different than a lot of soils here in Phoenix because, I've done the Back to Eden garden, or I'm going to add some stuff to it or whatever, and I want to know if I added enough of the right stuff.
Okay, so soil fertility is basically you can buy those little kits. You can also take and get a mason jar or a mayonnaise jar that's cleaned out and scoop your soil up in it, right? Well, you're not going to have to worry about it because you have the Back to Eden garden, right? But if you're just going to go out into your field and pull up some soil, you put it in a jar and then put some water in it, and you'll shake it up and let it settle. And then you can kind of tell by the different layers of soil after it's separated. A more precise way is to go to the store and you can get a pH test kit and then put a little bit of soil into each one. And some of them have break ampules. Some of them you have to add liquid to, but then you just shake it up and it's in a little vial and it'll tell you if it's acidic, alkaline, or whatever. And then they also make this one that has like 3 rods that come out the bottom of it, and it has a battery. Sometimes they're solar powered, and you stick it in the ground, and it'll tell you the different alkalinities and stuff of the soil in that area.
Okay.
But as far as like what you're doing, you're putting organic amendments into the soil.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you're pretty much putting a regular diet of compost, manure, green manure in the soil. And so it's going to stay alive and fertile. And a soil test will indicate whether the pH is too high. So if you put, those little container things I was saying, if you get those little vials and check your soil, it'll indicate whether or not the pH is too high or too low. You could add lime or wood ash to fix the problem. Well, wood ash is not exactly lime, but it acts like lime. So that's why we use it.
Yeah, see, I remember some of this stuff when we were up in Ash Fork, because in Ash Fork, I had a wood burning stove, to keep the house warm, and we had a lot of wood ash.
Yeah, and you got to get rid of it unless you make soap, and I mean, for the lye.
Yeah.
And then you can add sulfur at the recommended rate, depending on what your test comes up with. So, some tests will indicate like nutrient deficiencies, but then some are too far to be tested without taking it to your agriculture extension office, because they'll test it. It used to be free, but it's depending on where you live, I guess. Some soils are just too bad off to be, even if you add compost and manure, like some of the places in Tennessee where they strip mined the coal and stuff. Like the ground is just has so much crap in it left over from the coal mine where they strip the tops out, you can't fix it ever. I mean, even if you brought in, you'd have to bring in, 3 feet of earth, and then that stuff still might leach up through the soil. So check that if you're buying a homestead.
Yeah.
Make sure that they didn't do anything like that. There's a lot of horror stories that go along with that too. So like, I have some of my own, but you can search online to find somebody that will do a consult for sustainable and organic farming, or sustainable like an organic farming association in your area. A lot of people don't know that there's gardening associations in your area. You just have to go out and look for them. Purdue University, which is the one that does the Master Gardener program here, but a lot of universities provide that. They'll do a Master Gardener program. It's like $40 to $75, and you take a class, and it's like 6 or 8 weeks. You go 1 weekend a month, or sometimes 2 weekends a month. Just depends on what place you go through. And then you'll go for a weekend to a farm and see how a farmer runs his operation. So, I mean, really all essentially you're paying for is the book and a little bit of travel time, depending on how far you live. So that's always something good to look at. I mean, and a lot of people don't do it anymore. Like, I've just got it started again in my local area because nobody wanted to do it and they didn't have enough people to sign up for it. So I've been pushing people to go do it because I can run a 3D printer, but if the electric's out, I can't run a 3D printer, right? You know, you go be out there pushing the shovel. Now, do you want to know what what's the correct way to push the shovel, or do you want to, So it's always good to know. So even if you don't use it other than to plant some tomatoes, at least you're learning something.
All right.
In general, blood meal or bone or blood meal are good to add. Feather, fish, and hoof meal are also a good slow release sources of nitrogen. Wood ash is excellent for potassium, but don't put it on too heavy because it'll wash out and make lye into your soil. What you don't want.
Yeah, what you don't want.
Yeah, phosphorus, bone meal, and dolomitic lime both add calcium and magnesium, and so does the wood ash if you use hardwood. But the calcium and magnesium raise the pH, and the pH levels.
I don't think I used hardwood back in the day. We were always doing pine or what was the other? There was another one that grew local that we used. I can't remember
Spruce.
right now, but no, I forget. It's an Arizona native tree.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. That's all you, man. You can add gypsum if the pH level gets too high, and for trace minerals, you can add dried seaweed as a good place to start stuff like that. But you can also use the green manure and stuff too, like I said. So this is all juniper. Okay,
juniper trees.
Yeah, that's how they make gin. You take the juniper berries and make gin.
Oh yeah.
You should make a gin. Make you some gin.
I don't have them now, but yeah. There's a little bit of regret with that whole situation, boy, I tell you, especially when we're getting on the topic of chickens and stuff, because I was so close to getting chickens and looking forward to it, and it was going so well. Oh, well.
Yeah, I remember. I vaguely remember some of that. Like because I was like, "What the hell happened?"
Yeah.
Like I know, like I watched the video of you shooting and you were doing all this stuff and you made the composter. And I think we was talking. Like I think I actually called you or something. And then like the next video I seen you like, "Oh, we're fucking moving out. I took the batteries. I took the solar panels.
I'm taking everything." Yeah, I know, right? I don't know. I look back on it. I'm like, maybe I was a little harsh, but at the same time, I don't like getting manipulated. So I don't know. I cut my nose off to spite my face, I suppose. But part of me is glad I did it, and part of me is sad that I did it. Well, for one, I'm not. My doctor doesn't want me in high altitude, and that was pretty high altitude. For two, it was like 45 minutes to the nearest doctor's office, let alone hospital. So, if you cut yourself in an accident and it was serious, you're either dead or they got to life flight you. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's got good and it's got bad. I'd like to have that kind of property, but maybe a little easier in and out access. Maybe not so high of altitude. Maybe somewhere back east. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm hoping this Tennessee, like I'm trying every damn thing I can to get this fucking place. So
Yeah.
I hate to fucking ask people, man. Like I've had this, so I've had the GoFundMe up for like, I don't know, like a long time, right? Like a long time. I just never posted it because I'm like, fuck, I don't want to ask people for money.
No, I get that. I get that really, really well because I'm the same way. I don't ask for help unless I absolutely need it. And then even then, I don't like doing it because it feels like I'm begging.
Yeah.
And I've never been like that. But at the same time, you know, if you're not begging, it's not begging, right? Because you're saying if you want to, here's how you can, right? You're not coming out every video like, oh, I need this money, please donate. Like, hey, if you believe in this project, like I believe in this project, and you would like to see something like this coming up, here's where you can donate. Feel free to not if you don't want to, but you know, if you have extra money laying around and you think this is a cool thing, by all means. And I'm gonna start doing that even on my own channel, not with a GoFundMe, but like Patreon or whatever. I haven't done Patreon because my videos aren't very consistent, but once I get my videos consistent and I'm making, you know, content on a regular basis, yeah. If you like it, obviously I'm not getting YouTube support.
Yeah.
You want to chip in $1 a month, that ain't much, you know, but if I get 50 or 100 people chipping in $1 a month, that adds up. And, you know, you got to support the people that you enjoy watching or you agree with, especially if YouTube's not going to do it for them, you know. So, I don't know. I've come to a different understanding with the whole e-begging, what's e-begging and what's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And with your whole thing, dude, that's I believe in that quite a bit because, you know, the whole teaching people how to fish instead of giving them a fish.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. And that's exactly what this world needs right now. So if that can get up and running, then that benefits anybody that would do that. That you can't buy that. You can't. I mean, you can, but people don't do that anymore. And it's a breath of fresh air to see that happening. So I definitely encourage anybody who has a few extra dollars to go and donate a few to the GoFundMe on that. So once you get that up and running and actually posting links to that, I'll probably do shout outs for you and do some stuff on my channel about that too, because seriously, that's how much I believe in it, and I don't have any stake in it at all. So
this is like disheartening to think that nobody wants to watch these. You know what I'm saying? Because like this is ultimately life. I mean, granted you can't, but there's people that will actually implement this stuff on a smaller scale. I mean, when I say farmer, I don't have that much land here. I mean, I have 10 plus acres, but like that doesn't. I'm not farming all 10 acres. I mean, you can literally grow everything you need for a family of 4 on a quarter-acre farm.
Yeah.
A quarter of an acre. That's 60 feet by 60 feet by 660 feet?
Yeah.
Or no, well, if I think it breaks down, no, it's not 60. We did 60 by 60. We did 60 by 60 plots for our apprentices this year. So that equals a quarter of an acre. Now, of course, their house or well, it's not a house. It's a house, but it's a cabin, like a mini cabin, right? That's what they stay in. So that's also included on that piece of property. So the square footage of that, whatever, they're 8 by or 10 by 20 or something like that, I think. I don't know the exact, but that's also there, you know. But that also gives you a rain catchment system right there. You know what I'm saying? So you have that much roof space to start catching water. Plus, there's a pond and hand dug well down where the 2 quarter-acre plots are. So yeah, it's a cool gig. I you know, plus it helps me out, so I don't have to do everything on the farm by myself.
As far as not people watching and being disheartened, man, it's not a controversial subject. We're not talking about diseases that are going around right now. That whole controversy stuff sells, dude. And you'll get the people that you will get watching though are going to be enthralled. Maybe they're not watching right now. Maybe they'll come back later. You might only get 5 people that come and watch it, but those 5 people are going to be invested in it. You know what I mean? And they're going to be deeply invested in it. So
So
what do you want? What do you want? You want sensationalism and panic and all that, or
no, I
do
don't.
you want people actually learning? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. So I have all that fancy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Pandemic flu checklist for the workplace administrator, right? So I have all that. I have because this is even though it's a farm, I want to know all this crap, right? So I did my research on all that, on what to do, what not to do, and I could go out here and be sensationalist like all these other people, but it just
And you
chaps
get a ton of
my
views.
ass. It chaps my ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you sell something, okay. I have a website. I don't promote it. I don't tell anybody because look, I don't want to. I don't want to sell you something as a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say, "Oh, gotta get that food. Gotta get that food. We're gonna die if you don't get freeze dried food from me." And right now, I'm doing a 30% off sale. 30% off right now. I'm gonna
Go
do
into a
it.
business agreement with one of those freeze dried thing, like use my code, get 10% off.
Yeah, like I have that. Like I have all that stuff. I have the. I'm
Mm-hmm.
an affiliate distributor for a lot of these places, but I'm not gonna go on there and fearmonger that
Yeah,
shit.
but that unfortunately, that's the way. If you want to get paid, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, but I'm not
I
that
mean,
person.
just look at the one chat when we're talking about elderberries or ways to combat, flu
Yeah,
or keeping your immune system up. Those videos will do better
yeah,
than self-sufficient gardening
yeah.
because it's just more sensationalized. Sad, but that's how it is. But if anything else, you got one viewer here that is eating this shit up and ready to go plant some shit in the ground and fail one more time.
Hey, you gotta grow. You gotta crawl before you walk, right? You'll figure it out. It's like everything else, man. Like the first time you rode a bicycle, it wasn't it wasn't. I got on it, and rode it down the road like a champ,
Yeah,
right?
but it didn't take me 3 years and this much effort either.
But you didn't keep a journal either to log what went good and what went bad, right?
Nope.
Because things are lost in time.
Yeah. For one, I guess I'm growing on the wrong side of the house, but the other side of the house, the east facing, is very little area that I could even utilize, and it has a lawn on it that I'm supposed to keep.
Homeowner
So
association crap, right?
no, it's not homeowner association. It's we rent a house, and it's a very small house. And because we're renting this house, we're supposed to keep the lawn up because the people that we're renting it from want a lawn on it.
Uh,
So yeah, I'm trying to get out of here, but
righty.
at the same time, that's a whole other expense that I don't know if I really want to go through right now.
Yep, to save up and buy you some land out this way, and you be in low elevation. Well, I don't know. It depends on if you go to Tennessee or not, but
Yeah, right now we don't know, but man, it's got to be east, right? And
660 feet below or above sea level.
yeah, I don't want it to be too high of elevation. I would love to have some land that's not as far off the beaten track, for sure. I mean, that had its benefits and its minuses, but I don't know. When it happens, it'll happen.
Yeah, just gotta search for the right property for you.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
what?
right now we're really focused on getting our credit in good standing, which we're doing pretty good. And now that we have a little extra income, we're putting money back, and we're going to look into getting into some investments, maybe some rental properties. Of course, that after the credit gets better, obviously. But
Yeah,
got some plans in the works. I've got a little I don't know what he's called, like a 2-year plan for right now. Working on it. So.
Yep, that's keep a journal.
There you go.
I write everything down, everything. A thought that I keep one beside the bed. So if I wake up in the middle of the night, I can just write it down, because if not, I'll just lay there awake all night thinking about it. I'm like, damn, and I'll run it through my mind. Like I'll sit there and I have a project going on that I'm working with. I'm not working with. I'm making some stuff, and I'm going to send it to HDP. And I've been sending little tidbits of videos and stuff of what I'm making. I think I kind of talked to you about it too, but I'm going to send them to him, let him test them, because that's, it's what he done in the military, so it's
Right.
involved. So I'm going to send him these, and I'm making, like, I'll shoot him a short video and send it to him and say, hey, what's feedback on this? Well, can you do this? So I'll tweak it and make it this way. And then eventually I'll have an end product that is 100% approved by the HDP. Yeah. Because I want his, I want his, I can just put out my product and, it'll sell. I'm sure it'll sell, because everybody else that makes a product, something like that, it sells. But I'm trying to make the best product, the most features, or the most adaptability features anyways. So,
yeah.
But we'll talk about that offline, because I don't want to share that with anybody right now, because it's not patented.
Oh, you got like 1,000,000,001 ideas. You say you have a brain injury, but dude, it's working some overtime.
All the methacobalamin I drink, man. I try, if I could get that intravenously hooked up, I would. I got the brain injury. You'll hear it. I don't stutter as bad anymore. I used to have like a speech impediment really bad, but like I've been taking that methacobalamin, and I swear it helps. But I mean, I don't know. But I used to be like, I mean, it was bad. Like, yeah.
It sucks.
The better you eat and the more you work out, I think the better it makes you, it helps you.
Yeah.
Like, you can't heal everything, but the body's an amazing thing. Just like, the soil. You repair the soil and it'll replenish you, just like if you eat good stuff that you made yourself. Yeah. All right, well, we'll cut this off. It's 1:22. Right. Thumbs up, thumbs down, bitches, most complaints. Leave them in the comment section over there or over here. Yeah, and check out all my links if you want to. There's the USDA zone to check out what your last frost date typically is. The garden planner from Mother Earth News is on there, which is impeccably hard to find if you go there looking for it. But we found it. Put a link for you guys and gals below. Links to my Twitter, Instagram, and PayPal, and all that stuff's in there too. So check it out. Stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow maybe for a little bit, but tomorrow's going to be a busy day, and I don't know if Mr. Stinger will be available, but may or may not.
It should be.
But it may not be as long. So thanks for watching. Have a good day. I'm Irish USMC Vet. Peace.